Everybody please stand. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in this decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. The pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Be seated, please. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milanazza.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Mayor Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
9 present.
We have a moment of silence. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chamber for Norma Conlon McAndrews' husband Bartholomew, who died in 2018. Norma was educated in the local schools. She graduated from Northern Essex Community College Nursing School. She made her lifelong home in Lowell and was a member of the former Sacred Heart Parish, where she was a member of the Ladies' Sodality. And as that closed, she was a communicant of the Immaculate Conception Church. Norma worked as a registered nurse in the emergency department of St. John's Hospital for over 35 years. She also volunteered at the Lowell Police Department in the Criminal Bureau, where she answered the phone, took messages, and did a little bit of everything. She received a certificate of recognition for outstanding efforts on behalf of the Lowell Police Department volunteer program. She was also a member of the Upper Merrimack Valley Medical Reserve Corps and always had her emergency medical backpack ready to go to assist wherever needed. She was also recognized as a Patriot of the Year by the Hospitalized Veterans Organization in 2007 for her thoughtfulness, constant caring, and unselfish generosity towards worthwhile charitable causes. Norma loved the city of Lowell as much as the Lowell Police Department, where she thought of all of them as her second family. She is survived by her 8 children, Mary Donahue, Sharon Godeel, Bartholomew McAndrews, John, Norma Jean McAndrews, William, Patrick, and Jerry Wickland. 24 great-grandchildren, 24 grandchildren, and 18 great-grandchildren. We offer our condolences to her family, relatives, and many friends. She will be truly missed. Thank you.
Is there any other? Please darken the chambers. Thank you. Now we have the minutes of the Municipal Facilities Subcommittee, May 29th. Jumping into business. Actually, we have something very important under Mayor's business. Mr. Patel, please come up to the microphone. Mr. Patel, we want to thank you for your many years of service to the City of Lowell. We have a citation for you, sir. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby offers its sincere congratulations and thanks to Steve Patel for his 44 years of passionate and dedicated service to the City of Lowell. Steve started with the city in 1974 with the CETA program before becoming a full-time employee of the Department of Public Works in 1980. In 1982, he became the administrative assistant to Deputy Commissioner of Public Works, Parks. In 1987, he became the Superintendent of Parks and Open Space under Tom Bellegarde, and he has held that position for 31 years. A Belvedere resident, Steve Patel has worked under 10 city managers, 20 mayors, that's enough, and 100 city councils over his 4+ decades of service to the City of Lowell. Now, therefore, I, Mayor William J. Samaras, hereby offer all the best to Steve Patel. The entire City of Lowell is proud to honor and give thanks to this distinguished individual for all of his tireless work towards making our city a better place, given this 12th day of June, 2018. Congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for what you do, Mr. Patel.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say before? Anything you'd like to say, sir?
Yeah, I just want to thank the mayor, city councilors, manager Donahue and her staff, and thank all the city employees that I've worked with over the last 40-something years, especially the Parks, Cemetery, and DPW, who made my job a lot easier. And also I'd like to thank my family for putting up with me for all these snowstorms and festivals that I'm not around. And just wish you all the best. Thank you again.
We'd like to have a photo, and anybody that went through 20 mayors, needs deserves this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come forward, please.
One, two, three. Thank you.
It's hot up here. It's kind of warm up here. Okay, now we need approval of the minutes. Minutes of the Municipal Facilities Subcommittee, May 29th. City Council meeting, May 29th. Ad hoc Election Law Subcommittee, May 30th. Ad hoc Election Law Subcommittee, June 4th. I need a motion for acceptance, place and
So
file.
moved.
By Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Milonazo. Thank you. It's not 6 o'clock yet for the general public hearing. We'd go to Section 5, Communication from the City Manager. Informational report on Lowell staff, report on the parking department. Madam Manager.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. We did have a presentation a few weeks ago from Mr. Navin regarding the analysis about the parking garage, as well as the rates in the garage, as well as the street ticket rates and the parking rates on the street. We also included a packet information in your packet that has additional information than what was provided a few weeks ago. Mr. Navin is here, and we can present the slides if the council desires, or unless there's specific questions, whatever the wish of the council is on this. This is obviously intended to provide you as much information as necessary. We do have public hearings regarding the garage rates and the loan order regarding the building of the Hamilton Canal Innovation District garage. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you want us to...
What's the wish of the body?
I just have a couple questions. I think we've seen the presentation.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Madam Manager. I know that the Finance Subcommittee has held a number of meetings on this, and we've certainly heard from the businesses and ratepayers. So a question was from the last Finance Subcommittee, we had requested that you reach out to some of the business owners to see if there was a possibility of either cost sharing or trying to address some of the increases. And again, you know, I think the good news is that the garages are full and we're dealing with issues of occupancy and things of that nature. And I also know that you're looking to shift some of the regular users in the downtown area to some spots in another garage that is not being used as much. So I think we're trying to occupy and decrease that vacancy rate. I think it's a problem. It's kind of a good problem versus 20 years ago when you and I sat here and we were struggling to get this off the taxpayers. And I think that's important to note, that this is an enterprise fund and the taxpayers of the city are not paying for the new garage or these garages, as was the case in the past. So, sorry, that was a long-winded statement to my question. Has there been some movement on that?
Actually, thank you, Councilor. There was, pursuant to the request of the council, Mr. Navin did meet with downtown group and business owners. There was an outreach. They had meetings and there were discussions about what could be done. There was a proposal made regarding trying to group some of the, as you recall, there's a rate for 20 or more employees of a business that they get a discounted rate. Discussions were had with the Greater Lowell Chamber of Commerce and about trying to facilitate maybe grouping smaller businesses together so they could come together and take advantage of the rate. I think one of the complaints we heard from some of the smaller business owners is that they don't have 20 employees, and so they're not getting the same treatment in terms of a larger employer in the downtown or using the garages. That was offered. I don't know that there's been any follow-up, but that was something that Mr. Navin and the administration tried to come up with to try and give opportunity for some smaller employers to enjoy the same rate that larger employers are. We haven't had any follow-up from them, but that was discussed.
So would that be an amendment to the ordinance in sometime in the future, that businesses could put together a coalition, or could they just naturally do that?
I think they can just do it naturally. The Chamber of Commerce offered to be a vehicle. I think not every business is a member of the chamber, so that might have been a impediment. So in addition to letting the chamber facilitate grouping, the offer was made that if, let's say, 2 or 3 businesses in a building wanted to just group together, they could do that as well.
Okay.
So they didn't have to go through the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, I think that's good.
And I think according to Mr. I'm sorry.
That's an
according to Mr.
option. I think it's a good option for the businesses that are concerned.
Right.
Nobody wants to raise rates, but we've got to be able to sustain what's going on. And the last thing we want to do is put this on the taxpayers,
Right.
which I agree. And we don't want to lose businesses. So if there's an option to try to defray those costs or
Right.
minimize the impact, I think it's important.
Yeah, and according to Mr. Navin, we don't need a change in the ordinance. They can do it kind of naturally, and the parking office will work with individuals who want to come together and say we're a group. It's just it's a one-pay system, and it makes it more efficient for the parking department to handle those larger groups. But it's something that people could do, and we would help them do that.
The last thing I just wanted to touch upon is there were complaints from some of the business owners that parked there was the maintenance, and we do have deferred maintenance that still exists. Is that part, and I know we're going to go into the capital plan tonight, is there some expenditures to start addressing those capital needs? I believe Mr. Baldwin indicated it's about $7 million throughout the parking enterprise fund, and I think that was a chief concern, that they're paying for garages and some of them are not in substandard condition.
Thank you, Councilor. So that is part of the need, or it furthers the need for the rate increase. It would allow us to incorporate additional operation and maintenance into the operating budget of the parking enterprise, which will be funded by the rates and the fees of the users. So in order for the parking director to have sufficient funding in the annual operating budget to make necessary repairs, to avoid having to ask the council for additional loan orders for capital size repairs. This rate increase will go in making progress on that end. However, there likely will be an additional loan order in the coming years to address some of those needs that have gone deferred. But at this point, we're focusing on the new garage and the revenue from that.
Okay, thank you. Can you, the administration did come back. The original proposal was for, can you just refresh me and perhaps my colleagues what the initial increase was, and we're down to 2.2%, or before I make a statement, what was
Mr. Navin is approaching the mic, I think, ready to answer your question.
Good evening.
I know it was a significant reduction, and I think
There
that's a
is.
good thing. And we need to let the businesses know and the people that live downtown that it was at a, it was at.
Yes, certainly. We did pare down the rate proposal from what was originally introduced. In year one, generally speaking, the rates looked to increase upwards of 40%, and then in out years 2, 3, and 4, they would increase approximately 15% annually. And what we've done with this rate proposal is we've reduced the growth in year one to be strictly proportional to the increase in associated with inflation, and in subsequent years would tie increases to the consumer price index, which generally is has been 1 to 2% annually. Okay. And then to make up the delta, so to speak, this rate proposal looks to address the parking system comprehensively so that we can take advantage of revenue opportunities, not only in the garages with monthly parkers, but also on the street with metered rates, with parking citations and fines and things of that nature.
Okay, so this rate increase was at a high of approximately 40%, and the vote tonight, you didn't give me the percentage.
So in year one, it's approximately 33%, but the real savings are introduced in years 2, 3, and 4, where as opposed to where we were increasing 15% every year, okay. Moving forward, we've dumbed that down from 15%, which what we would anticipate to be somewhere around 2%.
In terms of dollar figures, what's the average increase?
The average increase is to a monthly pass card holder would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $20 per month.
Okay. All right, thank you. I had my share of time. Thank you for answering.
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the managers, but actually it's to directors of parking, Mr. Nick Navin. I noticed in the report here you did some comparison of peer community in terms of the cost of parking. Could you tell the viewer at home as to what are those cities in town that you compare the current parking rating to?
Sure. So when we were performing our comparative analysis, we endeavored to compare apples to apples as close as we could. So we viewed communities within the Commonwealth that were cities that had municipally owned and operated parking facilities. Those relevant examples that we compared ourselves to were Worcester, who operates 5 municipally owned facilities, Springfield, Massachusetts, which has 6, and then we also looked at Salem, Malden, Lawrence, and Haverhill.
I noticed that in the city of Salem, Mass. Have the lowest parking rate among all the city and town, the 7 cities and town that you compare low to. What take out from that? What's important note to take away from that, the Salem one?
So Salem is an interesting example where the parking is not operated as an enterprise fund. Another thing to consider is that Salem had not increased their parking rates in approximately 10 years, and they're currently entertaining a rate proposal as we speak. So Salem has the dynamic where parking revenues are part of the general fund. So when there are needs of maintenance or any critical repairs or capital needs, that funding comes and flows from the general fund as a tax subsidy, so to speak.
So like Lowell, Salem hasn't increased their parking rate for 10 years.
That's correct, sir.
When you're talking about general fund, meaning that Lowell currently has the enterprise fund. That is the revenue from parking would go to provide service and maintenance for the parking facility, parking garage that we have in Lowell. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, sir. Our enterprise fund is such that the department is run on user fees.
What would happen if we were to say no increase and stay as is, and what would happen to the enterprise fund?
It's trending that within a very short period of time, we will exhaust our retained earnings, and we will have a structural deficit that will need to be met, if not by parking rates, then likely by the tax dollar.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could to either the city manager or to Mr. Navin, if you could go back one slide. No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the Parking Enterprise Fund summary. That one, I'm sorry, go forward one, thank you. If you look at the FY19 request, there's actually 2 lines for FY19 request. The second line on the right, is that assuming that the proposal before the council tonight gets approved?
No, it's my understanding that these figures that are displayed in the fund summary do not reflect a potential rate increase.
Do not reflect, okay. So again, you had mentioned earlier that eventually, and it looks like it's in 2021, the ending fund balance will actually be in the red. Have you put in, going forward in the next, say, 3 fiscal years, the consumer price index that you talked about earlier, or again, these are just the flat rates?
No, sir. This, all of the figures that are presented in this document assume today's parking rate.
Today's parking rate, okay. So again, it's obviously very important that we take a serious look at adjusting the rates going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, I need a motion to accept and place on file. By Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Noon. Next, we have votes from the city manager. Vote authorizing the city manager to execute annual plan fiscal 18, fiscal 19. Waive the full reading and second reading by title. An
Mr.
ordinance, well, sorry. Authorizing the approval and submission of the fiscal year 2018-2019 City of Lowell Annual Action Plan to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. Okay, I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Noon. Discussion. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did provide in your packet the annual action plan for FY 18-19, and this pertains to the federal funding, including CDBG funds, home funds, HOPWA, Hope What funds, and the like. It details how the monies will be used and allocated in the plan. We have here from DPW Diane Trad if there are any specific questions regarding the plan for the next year. This does require a vote of the council.
Again, I don't have any questions. I'd like to just thank everyone for being involved. I know it's a very detailed public process, and if you look at the list of all the nonprofit groups that actually benefit from the CDBG, the home funds, and the other programs, it's really quite remarkable. And some of the dialogue going on now at HUD in Washington is actually looking at maybe increasing some of these line items over the next, at least the next fiscal year. So again, kudos to Diane and her staff for putting together a very good action plan going forward. Thank you.
Councilor Noon.
I too like to join Councilor Milonazo. That is, I'd like to thank Diane Tradd, the assistant manager, as well as the 12 volunteer citizens who are part of, in reviewing all these applications and distribute all these funds. And, from the look of it, everyone in the city, every nonprofit receiving something, which is a good thing. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The various school building improvements, could you give a little more detail on what that will entail?
In the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Diane, I'm not sure. Pardon? I think that's the capital plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
when this is the annual plan from CDBG, home funds,
Okay,
et cetera,
all
the
right.
federal fund.
I'll
But
wait.
that's coming up.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy. Yes. Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Cirillo.
Yes.
Counselor Conway.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, on ordinance from the city manager, ordinance amend chapter 272 by establishing new Article 10 entitled Stormwater Management. I need a motion to refer to public hearing on July 24th, 2018 at 7 PM. Motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Conway. Okay, report on the ad hoc subcommittee, election laws. Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had two meetings, one at CMA on May 30th. We have roughly about 70 to 80 people. In attendance was Councilor Kennedy, Councilor Elliott, Councilor Cirillo, and yourself, Mayor. And I think it was the takeout from that meeting was that overwhelmingly people feel that they want to support some sort of district and a large system, and they want to see a need for full community engagement, and they want to see a possible term limit and district representation, add more voter awareness, increase language and community involvement. I think one of the things that on Councilor Kennedy motion later on is to talk about the effort they're talking about really to have a civic engagement from the high school level, and Councilor Kennedy noticed that the effort of the current council, and that we have been reaching out, we've been going out there, we've been talking to the community for the need for enhanced, a possibility of having some sort of involvement from the high school and having some instruction there. And I think you yourself also comment on that. So and that was the first meeting that we had. That's the second meeting that we had at the election law committee. And then subsequently on June 4th, we had the third meeting at the Wayne School, where we have in attendance about 40 people. With present at that meeting was Councilor Kennedy and Councilor Cirillo. So again, the community was talking about the need to have representation, important form to represent in a local election. They're talking about also, which is I don't know if possible, and they're saying we can get a large turnout if we vote on Saturday and online, which is something I think the state need to look into. And again, they're talking about get youth involved in a lot of these elections and whatnot. So I would turn to first on May 30th to Councilor Kennedy and other councilor and you yourself, Mayor, to comment on it, things that I missed out on that meeting, as well as on June 4th meeting. So that's report. Councilor Cirillo.
Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. I also wanted to say that at the Pawtuckettville meeting, there was a lot of really good back and forth between some residents who liked the way that it is versus some residents who wanted it changed to district representation. I felt that that was a really good meeting of minds and going back and forth. So I just wanted to point that out also. Thanks.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion on item 9.8, and I was going to wait, but that probably will be at the end of the evening. So since Councilor Noon brought it up, let me just say that what we did at several of the subcommittee meetings, the ad hoc subcommittee meetings on the elections, what we did here was that people did not register to vote and really didn't know exactly what city government did or how it ran or when you vote or anything about it. And so what I thought was a good idea, and I think that everybody that was there thinks it was a good idea, would be maybe to have a little mini course taught at Lowell High School. And that mini course would help people would run seniors through how you vote, and also what the functions are of municipal government, what the city does, and what happens at City Hall, and how it all happens. And maybe as part of that, as a component of that, students could be registered to vote as seniors. And it was pointed out at the meeting that currently in the 8th grade, there is a civics course. But I think, and I think many would agree with me, that in the 8th grade, you're a lot younger and you may be not as serious. But for seniors at Lowell High School, many of them are 18 and they're eligible to vote, or eligible to register to vote at least. And so this would be an opportunity to get them to register to vote and go forward from there. And I think that, you know, we have a graduating class of about 700 seniors out of the high school or thereabouts. And so many of those seniors will stay in Lowell. And if they're already registered to vote, they're more likely to vote. And I think if they're also cognizant of what happens at City Hall and how municipal government works, then they're more likely to pay attention and be informed voters, which is, I think, good for the city.
Any further, Councilor Cirillo?
Yes, and I also want to add to what Councilor Kennedy said, that if we do have these seniors engaged, then they will talk to their family and their friends, and it will just be a spiderweb effect, and it'll continue so that we can get more people engaged and voting. So I think that this is a very fantastic motion. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Stroll brings up a very good point, and that was something that was discussed as well, that there are a lot of families in Lowell where English is maybe not the primary language. And so if seniors at Lowell High School have this knowledge and are aware of how to register to vote, they probably would bring that home and share it with their families, which also would be good for the city and everyone involved.
Right.
You know, I've always thought that, and I've had this discussion with other people, that it's good to register people to vote, but what you really want them to do is to be informed. You don't really want them to go in and just pick and choose people randomly just based on their name or maybe how they look or something like that. The city is much better served if voters are informed on the issues and informed as to where the candidates stand on those issues. Thank you.
Councilor Cirillo?
Yeah, and also Lowell Votes was mentioned, and how wonderful they are with helping getting the word out to the voters. So I think that this is all encompassing and very helpful.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I need a motion to accept this report as a report of progress by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Leahy.
I was just gonna say, there's something down at the State House going on now, maybe the manager knows about this, like a civils, an engagement that the House and the Senate are trying to propose.
Yes, Madam Manager.
Yeah, both the House and the Senate have passed bills on civic education, making it a requirement as part of the core curriculum with DESE. They differ a little bit, so it's in conference committee. I think the major difference is that the Senate bill requires a project-based learning project in order to satisfy the requirement, and that'd be part of graduation requirement, and the House may differ a bit on that. So it is in conference, and it's expected to reach an agreement this session, so that could be required.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Conway?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I recall, a number of years ago, Middlesex Community College and Lowell High School work together in regards to the voting process. And I think it might be, again, a little bit of a role model where some of the seniors are looking up to the freshmen and sophomore in college. And it might not be a bad idea to reach out to Middlesex and to see if we can get a partnership with them and try to combine. I think it'll make it more effective, and also it brings it brings our partnerships together, which I think is extremely important. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy, then Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I'm aware of the legislation that's pending down at the State House regarding civics education, and that's all well and good, but this is a little bit different. What we're talking about, what I'm talking about, is focused on Lowell and how Plan E runs. Because it's fine if you know what a mayor does, or a strong mayor, or whatever, and how the legislature works, but this would just be focused on planning government, how city hall works, and how city councils are elected and why. It's kind of a different thing, or more focused than that. And the motion that we'll be taking up later on in the agenda asks that the matter be referred to the superintendent of schools and the Lowell School Committee, and it's really under their domain anyways. So hopefully they would look favorably upon the motion and come up with a mini course that could be taught at Lowell High School.
You're all set, Councilor Elliott? Anything else? All right, I need a motion to accept the report as a report of progress.
So moved.
Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Elliott. Thank you. All right, we're going to go now to the hearings. First public hearing is the vote to endorse the fiscal 19 to fiscal 23 capital plan. Open the hearing. I need those in favor. You want to speak? Those in favor? That portion of the hearing is closed. Those in opposition to this plan? Those in opposition? That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt by the council.
So moved.
Kennedy, and seconded by Councilor Mercia. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Elliott, Milonazo. And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, the total cost is about almost $72 million, of which we'll be looking at general fund bond proceeds of about $10 million. What's the plan in the event that some of the other funding, the MassDOT funding or the EDA funding, or I think the MassWorks grant's actually already in place, but in the event that we don't get some of these monies going forward, what's the plan?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the MassWorks grants have been granted, as well as some of the other funding. I think the one that has not is the turnout gear. There's an application in place to obtain that public safety grant. I don't know if is that the only one, Connor, that I can identify?
So that's the only one that is still outstanding. Most of them have been secured previously.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. So now can I ask about the various school improvements and what that involves within this budget?
Yeah. So what we anticipate at the start of the fiscal year or before, once these are approved, working closely with the school department and DPW to identify priorities, work together to have the priorities. We do have a list in the budget book that the CFO, Mr. Baldwin, could illustrate. And some of the priorities in the schools, not by school name, but by infrastructure, HVAC, the AC controls, structural equipment repairs, and then lastly, the fire alarm testing in the schools. Those have been identified as priorities already. But in terms of specific repairs, we're going to have to work closely with the department and DPW, and I know the commissioner is here as well, has looked at this, and these will have to be tightened and finalized.
Okay. So what I'm concerned with is the high school. In the high school, a couple of months ago, when you first got here, I think the first day you got here, in fact, has experienced some problems and breakdown in the major building systems and gas leaks and so forth and so on. We don't want to have that happen in September when the school opens. So I would think we would want to make sure that everything was pretty buttoned up and that we were confident that the school was going to be able to operate next year without any problems regarding the major building system. So can you talk about that and what we're going to do in order to ensure that
As far as the high school?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and as I said, the commissioner's here. When we went through that situation in April, and there were the gas leaks in the field house, and not only were we examining and concerned about that portion of the high school, but at that point in time, we had the entire systems looked at in each of the buildings in order to determine that they were functioning. And again, as you point out, now they're off for the summer, and we want to make sure when we turn them back on that they are working. But we were assured that they are in working order. You know, some of the systems, that was the oldest system in the field house by far. Others had been replaced more recently, but nonetheless had been checked out. And I don't know if Commissioner Donison, if you want to add anything about the systems in the high school that were looked at in April in the plan for coming into September, not waiting until we have to turn the heat on to find out it may not be working or something of that.
Before he does that, I mean, the heat is one thing, and we want to make sure that the heating and and so forth is okay. But also, a couple of months ago, there was a motion that was passed in this council asking that there be an assessment of all the school buildings,
Yes.
including the high school. And so, I guess that's what I would like to be addressed is what other problems are there, and what are we doing to make sure that we don't have those problems in September when the school opens?
Commissioner?
Yeah, to address your second question about so we're in the city's in the process of interviewing firms for a facilities management study, which will look at all of the city buildings included in all the schools. That won't be available before school opens because it's still in the process of being reviewed. But as far as your first question with respect to the high school and the heating system in the field house, that's in process of a purchase order has been issued with the Boston Mechanical, who's the contractor who's going to be installing that. And that'll be installed over the course of the summer, as well as the city's going to be negotiating with them for some additional units in the basement of that building, which is the male and female bathrooms, as well as the wrestling room and the swimming pool area. So the intent is that will all be finalized before September.
Okay, and also there were problems with the roof. And I know we're putting a new roof on the 1922 building, but the Lord building, that had issues too, I think, with the roof, didn't it?
The 1980 building?
Yeah.
If there are, our lands, buildings, and parks, or lands and buildings are going to be working that over I know there's been a couple of issues with some of the leaks in the last month, and they've been out there taking care of that.
Okay. So are you confident that we can go into September without having any of the major building systems breaking down at the high school?
Yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also,
I'm sorry.
we've got, Mr. Mayor, we've got $75,000 for the fire stations. And we just had a subcommittee meeting 2 weeks ago and went over with Chief Winwood about the different issues at the different fire stations. And I understand that $75,000 is not going to cure all of the ills that were listed by the chief in the report that he did. But what do we expect the $75,000 to be for? And I guess what I think might be prudent is that we would have an amount of money in every year and just take one station at a time or whatever makes sense. But what is the plan for the fire stations going forward?
Thank you. The Chief Winward is here, Counselor, and he can address the specifics as to, as you know, there are several fire stations in need of repair.
Thank you, Madam Manager. So, Counselor, I've had a couple of preliminary meetings with DPW Commissioner Donison, and we're coming up with a price list of what each item would cost. So, in addition to the $75,000, we have some old capital money that would like to do some of the repairs. We're going to try to get some of them done in-house, so it'll be a little bit cheaper. So we'll come up with a cost estimate of what it will cost, see what we can get this year, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay. And so do you expect to use the $75,000 as part of that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You're welcome. This is my last point, I think. While we're talking about old money, there was a couple of years ago, I believe $450,000 put into the capital budget at that time for school repairs. Has that money been expended, or has part of it been expended, or where do we sit with that money? And is that money still available to be added to the $1 million that we have for?
Counselor, a large portion of that authorization from fiscal 16, I believe it was, as well as some old existing loan orders were used recently for the gas leak, to address the gas leak in the high school, as well as some of the heating issues that occurred over the winter time. A large portion of that authorization was utilized to address those issues, which is part of the financing strategy that we have here to authorize the building, under the building improvement statute of the finance law, so that it's broad enough that when these issues arise, the authorization isn't so narrow that we're unable to use it without bringing it back to the council for additional authorization.
So is some of that money still available, or is all of that money still available? Was it ever expended?
It was mostly expended. There's a small balance remaining. However, I would hazard a guess of less than $100,000.
Yeah, okay, all right. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, just lastly, in some of the questions that the issues that you address, that study that we're in the process of gathering the information to get will prioritize and give us a better idea of whether it's the school, it would include school buildings as well as the municipal buildings and fire stations, so we know what should be number one on the list in terms of getting done. But to the use of the existing loan order, when we had the gas leak issue, getting the units ordered without having to delay and come back for further authorizations was critical to try and get them, since there was such a long lead time to get them in here and installed before school comes back.
Okay, and then the last thing, this just popped, the last thing was going to be the last thing, but this just popped into my mind. The city has recently done a lot of improvements out at Colley Stadium to the baseball field, and it looks really great. But one thing that has not been touched are the restrooms, and I'm just wondering whether the restrooms could be added into this plan. I'm not sure how much they would cost, but the restrooms are, the field and everything else has been redone, and it looks great, but the restrooms don't look great whatsoever. And the thing about that facility is that a lot of people come into the city, and that's where they go. They come off 495, they go and they watch their son play baseball, and then they leave. And so for some people, their only experience with the city of Lowell is when they're at that stadium. And so I think it's important that the restrooms be suitable, and they really aren't at this point. And it would be a shame to have the whole thing done as it has been done, and then just to leave the restrooms untouched.
Councilor, that authorization that was authorized by the City Council for the improvements at the ball field, some of the work that was done out there was less than what we had estimated, so there is an available balance in that authorization. Whether or not it's sufficient to cover work to the bathrooms is something we'll have to look into, but certainly there is authorization remaining.
We'll look into seeing if that can get done.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Conway, then Councilor Newman, then Councilor Leahy. Councilor Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad that Councilor Kennedy brought that up, because he's absolutely right. You have a beautiful facility, and I've heard a number of people come back and that they don't talk about the facility, but they talk about the bathrooms. It's something small, but yet I certainly agree with Councilor Kennedy. We need to address those and bring them up to date. And I think at that particular point, it certainly is needed. That's the first point I wanted to make. The next point, and I hate to beat a dead horse on this, and I know that Councilor Kennedy has mentioned this a few times. We've all talked about it too, and that is the heating systems. I will tell you that in many forums like this, or in the school department, we have been assured that the heating system is going to work. And each and every time, it seems as though there's still problems. And I have said, and I've been involved with the school department for well over 30 years, and I see this every single year, and it is kind of bizarre, really. And yet, on the floor, again, whether it's city council or school committee, everything's going to be all set. And then when something happens, who's in charge? Nobody knows who's in charge. And I think that's where we have to take a good look at this And I had, again, I've mentioned it a number of times, and I know other people have too, is these systems have to be tested, not December 14th. They have to be tested in the summertime. And of course, the reason is, number one, if they're working. Number two, if they're not working correctly and they have to order parts, because that's another problem that we had last year. You had to order parts, and they were going to be 4 weeks and 6 weeks, and now you have, a situation that is in complete turmoil. So I hope that we can identify, number one, who's in charge of this, who's in charge of the timetable, when it's going to take place, what the results are, to get that back to us, I think is paramount. And if there are any issues or problems, this is where we have to sit down, we have to figure out how do we solve them, where do we get the money to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Yes, Madam Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I know Mr. Troop is here to speak to some of the issues that are raised here, especially regarding the heating systems.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Councilor, in regards to the question about the facilities at College Stadium, that's part of the next phase of the project. The field was the top priority in getting the dugouts and the walls done, but we already have on the radar an expansion of the bathroom facilities as well as improvements to the concession area, and that is from the previous capital loan order. Thank you.
All set.
And just
Manager.
quickly, Mr. Troop, regarding the, I know Commissioner Donaldson mentioned interviewing companies for HVAC and maintenance and upkeep. I don't know whether you have anything further to add as it goes to that issue.
I think the Commissioner and the CFO addressed it very concisely.
So in Councilor Conway, one of the things I am discovering that there's every school has different systems, different requirements, different expertise, and that's why we're talking about getting someone who really understands each system, and it may be different firms in terms of properly testing and making sure they are working. Many of these systems have software updates that have not been kept up to date, and when they're not, the systems themselves appear to be failing, and sometimes it's a software update. So there's many, many moving parts on these, but you're right. We have to know who's in charge and make sure that they're done in advance and not as just a reaction when the systems are failing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the managers. Chief Winwood have mentioned that, he's, with regard to the firehouse, that he's working with Commissioner Donaldson about getting, a list of items and the cost estimate. My request to you would be that, would you update us with the cost list of each item and the cost estimate when you have it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We will get those to you.
Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. So I just had a couple of things to go over too. So why don't we start with the heating? So through you to the manager, I'm glad that you have looked at that. And, the problem is exactly what you said, that heating systems are too complicated today. There's too many hands touching them. We got to just straighten this out. One company come in, turn them on, test them, and then they're responsible. And I think that's just the way we have to go. Our DPW is just, we're cut down to the bone, and we can't handle this whole system. So I think that's a way to explore it and take a look at this and see what we can do. And the other thing I just want to mention about the schools too is, we're playing catch up, but all these small issues turn into the big issues. The paints, and then they rust, and then they get holes, and then, so it just grows there. We don't fix the holes in the walls, they get bigger and bigger, and then the areas get bigger. You have to come up with the school department, with the principals. The principals are in charge of the building, and get a list together, get it to the facilities director, and then we have to figure out a way to chip away at that list. And as far as the roofs go on the high school buildings, we've had plenty of discussions on that, how I feel about that. I don't want to spend a cent until we do the repairs. It just doesn't make sense to put $1 million roof up there and then rip it apart. And anything can be patched. I know we've been patching, but it just doesn't make sense to put a brand-new roof up there until we know what we're doing. As far as the firehouses go, you know, I've made my point on that too. I wholeheartedly believe that a good study would benefit the city, but at this time, I don't think it applies. I think we know that we gotta start with our roofs, our windows, our doors, our facades, and then go into the buildings with the heat, and whatever, right down the list. And I think that money that we would spend on any type of a study right now could be put immediately into the repairs of the municipal buildings and the school buildings. I think down the road would be a great idea to get someone, a professional in to assess everything and help us out, but I think right now, you know, taking a tour with Mr. Donaldson and the fire chief, it's pretty obvious what needs to get done and what needs to get done immediately. And the other thing I just wanted to add is I'm glad to hear about College Stadium, because that's something that I had brought up in 2015, and I talked to Assistant City Manager Diane Tradd about this, because I was disappointed that there wasn't any money going into it until 2018. So I'm glad that, you know, we're finally starting to get the bathrooms repaired and expanded. And I did have one question about the concession stand that Mr. Troop brought up, if I could ask you about, because we just did the concession stand, so I didn't know, we doing something else to it out there?
Yeah, there was, a part of the plan was not only some improvements in the concession area, but also a seating area, so it was a little bit more amenable to the people that are spectators.
Oh, all right, okay. Because we just did a lot of work on that a couple of years ago,
Correct.
right? 2 or 3 years. Okay. So, I mean, I like the whole plan overall. I just want to make sure that, you know, we have to figure out a different way of doing business and spend our money wisely and get things done efficiently and, you know, right on. I mean, the roof out at Old Ferry, it's just been leaking for too long, and I don't understand why that happened. Long enough for cabinets to rot and for a ceiling to rot out. So that's not a 2-year leak, that's a 5-year leak. So these are the things that have to stop, and we have to get going on this. So I appreciate all the help, especially for the turnout gear. I'll just end with that, you know how important that is. And this is an important piece of equipment that they need today. It's not like fighting a fire 30 years ago. Things are very different today with all the emergency calls. They must do 30 calls a day. They average 1 fire a day. So this has to be considered part of their daily equipment. And we have to bite the bullet, get us caught up, and then start appropriating every year. We can wait for that grant, but, you know, I'd like to see us try to catch up by July, if we can, on the turnout gear, if we could, August by the latest, but we've got to do something with that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Many great things have been said this evening, but I still want to reiterate a point that really frustrates me. And Councilor Leahy said the key words, let's eliminate the study when it comes to the fire stations. That's like me in my household looking around saying, gee, let me call in someone that can tell me what has to be done in this house when I know that the front stairs need to be done, or the roof needs to be done, or the cabinets need to be repaired. I know that better than anything else, what needs to be done on my property or in my house. Just like the fire stations, each department knows what they need there. Put the list together and try to figure a way to pay for it. Take that study money that would have been gone to someone that could tell you what should be done and use that instead to fix the repairs. That's the key issue, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you. Regarding the fire stations, we've already got a list of what needs to be done at each fire station. What we don't know is how much it's going to cost to do each thing. And so the study is not some study that we're outsourcing to somebody. It's just what we asked the chief, what the subcommittee did is ask the chief several weeks ago to put numbers cost estimates next to each one of the fire stations with what had to be done there. That's all it is, and I think it's just an in-house study that the subcommittee is waiting for.
Thank you. Council Leahy?
Well, I just want to be clear, because I'm hearing that we're doing whatever RFP for a study, and that's going to cost $100,000 to $150,000, I would guess. I don't know, but I'm guessing, and I don't even want to spend $30 on someone to come in and tell us what to do. But you're right, we have to get the numbers. I mean, you know, it is. The firehouse is, whatever, 20 squares, it's $1,000 a square, get the roof done. I mean, it's simple. We just need to do it, and we need to change our practices. We have all new people here, we're not going to point fingers, but let's just start.
Thank you. Madam Manager, I have two questions.
Sure.
Regarding, could you just outline some of the other things that will be done under this capital plan so us people watching will understand what's going on? Then the second question will be the $1 million for the high school roof. Can we work with the MSBA on that to negate some of the costs? Because that's a concern to this group.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to your second question first, that has been the subject of discussion. Obviously, we haven't gotten into schematic design yet, but it's something that both our architects and consultants are very well aware of as an ongoing issue. If this roof could make it to when the project is going to be reached for the 1922 building, it obviously would be included as part of the MSBA reimbursement, and that's one of the, so it needs to be done. My understanding, we are continuing to look at this, is that it may not be, maybe beyond patching or repairing, but that's what we've been told, and we'll take a closer look at that. As to the issue of if it has to be repaired now in advance of the approval of the project for funding by the MSBA, we have also had preliminary discussions about trying to get that reimbursement, albeit the roof came first and the approval came second. It's a novel position, but one that we would continue to fight for, particularly where this was unavoidable in terms of if that's the case and if we can demonstrate that, and that it would have been a reimbursed cost. There's nothing automatic about it, but it's something that we would absolutely advocate for. And in terms of design, we're also asking that our architects be mindful of whatever's being proposed out there so that it doesn't have to be ripped up as to where they're putting mechanicals or things after the fact. So it is a work in progress, Mr. Mayor, but there's no immediate decision on that, but from the MSBA, and there won't be for a while until we get to them in terms of the design and argue point for reimbursement.
No, I understand that, but thank you for trying. I think that's what's important. That's the issue.
Okay. So as far as other projects that are contained in the capital plan, was that your first question,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor? So just quickly, I will go over, and I know there's been some slides up here, but these include infrastructure over this plan, almost $8 million of infrastructure, public safety of over $1 million, and community maintenance and development. With regard to infrastructure, included in the capital plan is the Hamilton Canal Innovation District Garage for $35,400,000. The Lord Overpass at $19 million. Paving of streets and sidewalks, $3,205,000. The roof replacement that we've been discussing, $1,150,000. School improvements, building school improvements, $1 million. The design and infrastructure for streets G and F in the Hamilton Canal, and that's close to $8 million. The telephone system upgrade in the city of $558,461. Tanner Street realignment, $150,000. The list goes on. Equipment replacement, $227,000. The Butler School HVAC replacement for $80,000. In the public safety segment of the capital plan, there's emergency center upgrades of $610,000. The Civic Center fire station improvements that we've heard about a few weeks ago from the chief that are necessary, $150,000. Additional fire station repairs talked about tonight, $75,000. We do have included in here the turnout gear for the fire department, $675,849, and the CAD system upgrade for $152,988. In terms of the community maintenance, the O'Donnell Field remediation that for $750,000. The Lasher Park improvements, $50,000. The VFW at Beaver Brook remediation, which we talked about a few weeks ago as well, as far as further testing, for $50,000. The Westford Street landfill remediation for $50,000. And some vehicles, streets, sander and skid loader, $80,000 and $46,000 respectively. So that accounts for the nearly $72 million of the 5-year capital plan.
Thank you, thank you. Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good plan, and I know we're focusing on our expenditures this year, but this is a 5-year plan. I appreciate every year it's revised, it's revamped to show the needs that change from year to year, and I think moving forward, the fire department, if you look at the 5-year plan, maybe some of those needs will have to be, modified. So I think it's important. I think this is it's a good balance. It almost mirrors the operating budget because it invests, as you mentioned, Madam, it invests in economic development, it invests in education, and it's not just the high school. I mean, there's the HVAC at the Butler. There is some contamination issues at the Riley, and that's in this plan. So I think it's well balanced, and it also invests, I think, very importantly, in paving and sidewalks. Because that's what we hear from constituents. If you look at the agenda on any given week, when is my road getting paved? When are they going to improve the sidewalks? And I think not only are we receiving additional money, Chapter 90 money from the state, but we're also putting our tax dollars in. This year we'll spend $3.2 million, and I think that's important. It invests in traffic signalization, another major item on the budget. So we hear these things from neighborhood groups, and it's good for them to know that we're listening to them, and we're not setting money aside, but we're spending money to save money in the future, in my opinion. So I support this. Again, with economic development, looking at the G Street design, if we don't invest in that, it's going to be difficult for us to attract developers because it's access. So I think that's important. Similarly to the Tanner Street realignment, where we're spending some money, but by the same token, taxpayers these are all matched by grants, federal, state, MassWorks, and I think that's important that we do it. And needless to say, the Tiger, the Tiger grants that we got $13 million, the city's putting $3 million in. That's all going to improve with traffic flow and economic development and public safety. So I think this is important. I know Councilor Leahy mentioned the turnout gear. It's important because this is phase 2. And sometimes these firefighters are going to, as well as investing in those ejector machines. It's very important. It's one of the leading causes of deaths that firefighters are wearing contaminated gear, and I think we have to protect them. There's also $150,000 in here for the Civic Center to make some improvements over there. I did have one question on the phone system. We're spending $560,000 on upgrading the phone system, and maybe this is just because I'm sure there is a need. I understand that, but considering we're going wireless, everybody, very few people, even at home, are keeping landlines. Could you explain this? It's a lot of money. I'm sure that there's a need, but $560,000.
That's for the school department phone upgrade, and it is right now. It's badly needed because the schools cannot even connect to another school. I know Mr. Fernandez is here as well.
Okay, that is important.
it not only is communication, but it is really safety in terms of the schools for those communications. Maybe, Moran, if you can address the upgrade in the school systems that are necessary.
Yes, ma'am, Counselor. As with the other infrastructure components at the schools, when we look at roofs and HVAC and other components, one of the other pieces that have been somewhat neglected through the years have been the telephone systems. Many of them have been installed, never had any maintenance on them. Many of them have died and have been held together with patching whenever possible. We've had instances just in the past year where at least one school completely lost their phone system for a significant period of time. So what we've looked at has been a comprehensive overhaul, which would allow the classrooms themselves to dial out to 911, allow the personnel at each of the schools to be able to better coordinate with each other, communicate with each other, contact the administrative offices, and really be able to work better and work hopefully for a longer term with a maintenance plan in place and cohesively integrate with everything else within the city. We are implementing some phone system overhauls throughout the city, and this would allow everybody to better communicate together.
Thank you. That's helpful, and I will close. Again, I think this is, there are 100, and by the way, the 5-year plan, this is just a snapshot of what the needs are in the city. There's still 132 plans that have been identified or projects that have been identified, which is perhaps just scratching the surface, but I think that we continue to invest a certain amount into capital, into these projects that addresses so many of the issues that we talk about every single week, including fiscal management. I think that's important, the element that's in there. So I'm going to support this, and I think it continues to address a lot of the issues that we have in the city in a very strategic manner.
Councilor Kennedy, then Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one other thing regarding the paving, and I think Councilor Cirillo has brought this up a few weeks ago, but everybody gets upset when we pave a street and then have the utility company dig up the street 6 months or 9 months later, and then you've got this little trench that goes down the road. We've got a 5-year plan here. The utility companies have a 5-year plan, probably even a 10-year plan. And so they know ahead of time, they know when they're gonna dig up different streets, I have to think. And so it would be prudent, and makes a lot of sense to me at least, to ask them, are you gonna be digging up these streets in the next 5 or 10 years? And if they are, then don't pave them. Don't pave those streets until they've finished their work. But if they can assure us that, streets A, B, and C are not gonna be, they're not on our list going 5 years out or 10 years out or however many years they go, it's just a better way to spend the money, and I think the street just lasts a lot longer if you do that. So I know it's been brought up before, but as long as we're talking about this capital plan, I just wanted to just kind of put that in as a little reminder that seems to make a lot of sense. Absolutely. Thank you.
Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. The capital plan is a very good plan. We need to invest in our infrastructure, invest in our future. And if you look at the debt service in the budget as a percentage of operating revenue, again, it's considered a warning if you're at 20% of operating revenue from the standpoint of debt service. And our last fiscal year, we were at 2.93%, and we're trending down. So, again, I think it's important to let the viewers know that we can afford to do this capital plan. And if you look at the debt service as a percentage of assessed valuation, the warning percentage is 10%, and we're at 3.17%. So again, trending down. So it's a favorable rating from the agencies. So it's important to let our taxpayers know that we can afford to do these very important capital improvements. Thank you.
Any further? Yes, Madam Manager.
Just in follow-up, if we don't do it and make those investments, it's going to cost us much more in the long run in every one of these categories. So it really is, it's necessary.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Cirillo.
Yes.
Councilor Conway.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay, next, we have the loan order 2019 capital improvement. Open up the hearing for those in favor. Those who want to speak in favor? Want to speak in favor? That portion is closed. Now open it for those who are in opposition. In opposition, want to speak in opposition? Hearing's closed. I need a motion to adopt and refer it to the clerk. Pardon? Okay, move. Adopted and referred to the clerk's office for 28 days by 20 days, I'm sorry, I read 28. 20 days by Councilor Kennedy and seconded by
Seconded.
Councilor Cirillo. Thank you. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
All right, next we have the ordinance to amend Chapter 266 parking rates. Open hearing for those in favor. Those who want to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Samaras and members of the City Council, Manager Donahue. I've prepared a statement that I'd like to read into the record. My name is Nick Navin, and I'm the Parking Director for the City of Lowell. I speak in favor of this ordinance amendment to adjust our parking rates and fines. Our parking system is a critical resource to our downtown. Since the inception, our parking garages have been a catalyst for economic development in the downtown over the past 2+ decades. Businesses have grown, mills have been rehabilitated, and the downtown bustles with events on a regular basis. And it's with this parking supply and our favorable rates that we've incentivized downtown development and activity to occur. And today, the same holds true, where we're in a position where we look to unlock the development potential of the Hamilton Canal Innovation District by first constructing what will be our 6th parking garage. New construction is cited as the main reason for considering this rate increase, but of equal importance is raising adequate revenues so that we may maintain our existing facilities. A prevailing narrative amongst our city departments is the disrepair of our buildings and lack of routine and preventative maintenance. And we must not allow our parking department to slip any further into this category. This rate proposal would be a momentous step towards the right direction and would allow us to tackle our deferred maintenance and improve our housekeeping. Previously in this statement, I mentioned our favorable rates. And I feel strongly that even with this proposed increase, we will still maintain some of the most favorable parking rates in the Commonwealth. In fact, a comprehensive comparative analysis has proved just that. Even with this proposed rate increase, we would be on the lower end of the regional market average. And in many cases, the monthly rate payer would see an increase of somewhere between 50 cents to $1 a day for parking. As we all know, it's been far too long since we've considered a rate adjustment. And I believe that it's time that collectively we find the resolve to acknowledge this and make an appropriate step forward towards progress. I understand that any time you address an issue that has long been deferred, it's gonna sting at first, but we should find comfort in the fact that this correction will yield positive benefits to all of us by maintaining the health of our parking enterprise and what should amount to tangible improvements to all of our parking facilities over time. So, as is often the case with parking or a rate increase of any kind, the pragmatic decision may not be unanimously popular. And I'm sure that any proposed rate adjustment designed to adequately address our areas of need will spur a dissenting opinion. But I urge you to consider primarily the needs of our public parking assets when you arrive at your decision. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else to speak in favor? Speak in favor? That portion is closed. Anyone to speak in opposition? Opposition?
Maybe not entirely opposition, but I do have a couple of questions. And my first...
Your name and...
Oh, I'm sorry. Gail Frace, 29 Tolman Avenue. My first question is when a business, such as the group earlier this year, that was proposing to put in a private dorm at the former Jeanne d'Arc site inquired about spaces in the garage to meet its off-site parking. If that had been granted, would the business be required to provide some type of replacement cost for those parking spaces that they'd be taking up?
I imagine.
I wasn't here then. In terms of the replacement cost, they would be required to pay for the parking spaces?
I'm just wondering, I know that they would be required to do the monthly parking
Right.
rate. But if they're getting away with, or they're not getting away with, but if they don't have to invest in providing so much on-site parking, and instead the city's providing it for them, it seems that those developers are sort of profiting at the city and the parkers' expense if they're not, contributing to replacing those spaces. And it's my understanding that the proposed new garage near Canal Place was originally going to have commercial space in it, but it's been determined that parking is too great of a need, and that the commercial space was going to be roughly equal to 100 parking spaces. And part of me can't help but wonder if that could still be commercial space if 150 spaces at LRTA hadn't been given to like the Thorndike Exchange for their use. So, in leaving the residents with, car alarms going off undoubtedly 40 yards from the windows. The other observation that I have on the rate structure, not a parking expert, but I know that a lot of communities that I visit, the on-street parking or metered parking has a higher value on it because it's considered premium for its convenience. And that doesn't seem to be reflected in the proposed rates that you have before you. And one of the reasons why that's often done is not only because the space on the street is considered premium, but it encourages people to go directly to a garage where they're likely to find space rather than circling around looking for a cheaper, more convenient space and contributing to the traffic issue. So I'm sort of curious as to what, and also when drivers are looking for open spaces, they tend not to be looking at other cars or pedestrians. Another comment that I would just make is that it's my understanding that downtown is not quite self-sustaining, so you do need to have people come in for work or recreation from elsewhere. And it seems that this might be an opportunity that the city is missing as a way to support downtown businesses. A number of communities such as Burlington, Vermont, offer like a first hour or first 2 hours of parking for free in a garage, again, as another way to encourage cars to go there, park, get out and be pedestrians rather than exacerbating the traffic problem. So I'm a little surprised that something like that wasn't considered in this pricing rate. And then some communities, such as Nashua, like Lowell, who compete with office park, shopping malls, and strip plazas where parking is ample and free, do things like offer free parking in their garages on Saturdays and Sundays. Nashua also offers free parking some nights after 7 that, encourages people to go downtown rather than simply head to Pheasant Lane. And I would just sort of close by saying that I know years ago that women from my church used to go out to dinner, and there was one night that like 18 or 20 of us came downtown on a Monday night, and after we figured out how much we paid for parking, the non-Lowellians were unwilling to ever come downtown for dinner again because that money could go towards, having brought somebody who couldn't pay or having gotten 2 appetizers for the table like that. So I would just encourage you not to, price Lowell out of being competitive. And I do think that when you do look at communities, that you have to look at those, I know the most recent one that you did this, but, not just go, oh, it's better than Cambridge or Somerville, because those places truly, you can live there without a car, whereas in Lowell, the LRTA doesn't run on Sundays. It has a very limited schedule on Saturday, and it's not really a one-to-one comparison. I think you need to look at other communities, and I know you included Salem, but those who do have to compete with office malls, office plazas, and strip malls and things like that. Thank you.
Anyone else speak in opposition? Speak in opposition? Parking?
Hi. Good evening. Michael Najar. I work at 45 Merrimack Street with Margot Law Firm. As you know, we had spoken before in opposition. I had some colleagues I think they all are looking for space out of downtown and just gave up. But I didn't want to not come, and I wanted to not disappoint Nick, who was an incredible asset to this city. And I want people to recognize that we recognize there is a need for the garages to have enough money to maintain themselves. The point that of our opposition, or mine in particular, has been, you know, great discounts and incentives were given for the technology center, now owned by you, Lowell. Great incentives were given to lure in the Lowell Hilton, now owned by you, Lowell. If you, Lowell, wants to make an offer for our practice, we're listening. There are discounts given to Lowell High. There is a different rate structure for residents. There's an unfairness to the pricing scheme that hits up businesses. And when you think of it, I'm thinking about these residences, you know, people that bought because there was a lower price for what they could get parking in a parking garage, the seller of the unit got more. When they're renting, the fact that you can rent and pay less for your parking, the landlord gets more. It's all business, folks. It's all business. There's just a disparity and it's an unfairness. That is the point of the opposition. And in addressing a comment made by somebody here the last time I testified, the answer is 10%. If anybody wants to know what we raised our rates since 2003. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition? Come forward.
Hi. I was here last August.
You just need to state your name, please.
My name is Gloria Lee. I live downtown. And I told you all about the parking rates that have never been published to the residents. I've lived downtown for 19 years. Your parking business, it's a business. It's a profit-making business. You don't know anything about it. I have been parking in a garage downtown for 19 years. I live downtown, and I have watched, first of all, you're talking about losing. I have watched all of these businesses. When I got here, there were so many great places to eat, so many great thriving businesses that had been here forever, and there was a revival going on. That was in 2000. Do you know how many businesses are gone? Do you know how many businesses have left in the last year? Just take a walk downtown. There are empty spaces. No one is going to pay, and I know you just raised the rate on the parking meters, which are truly a mistake. You shouldn't even have parking meters, or you should do what this guy said. You should give everybody 2 hours of free parking if you want them to spend money downtown. The message right now is, we want your money, but we want all of it. We want you to pay for every minute that you're here. If you want to dash in somewhere for 5 minutes, you got to pay us. So the message is, the businesses are leaving as fast as they can. Your people who live downtown are selling their condos and leaving. I think I'm going to leave because you've turned Lowell into a money-making scheme, and you haven't even looked at the mess that the parking department is in. And I've tried to tell you. I have tried to tell you that this information, I got you to do this flyer, which you finally did for me, and you decided March the 6th in this meeting, because I saw you, that this would be distributed. I just got a copy last week. Today, for the first time, you had them downstairs in the lobby. I have paid for copies for the library, the senior center, the grocery store, my building, a few other places. I've been distributing this information because I think there are hundreds of people downtown who are paying $48, and my main concern are the 62-year-olds. When I turned 62, no one told me this. I pay with a check in the office every month for 53 months. I wrote the city of Lowell a check for $48. No one ever said, this is the rate when you're 62. I know someone else who paid $48 for 10 years before I told her that it was 62 when I found out last August. And I have been trying, I have spent a lot of time trying to tell people this information should be shared. You're running a business. This is a business. I told one of the counselors this afternoon, when I was a teenager, I got a job as a sales clerk, and I had a 3-day training, and one of the things that I will never forget is you attach a price to whatever you're selling. If it's a parking space, a shirt, a TV, you put a price on it, and you make sure that the customer knows what it is, and you have to sell it to them for the price that you posted. This is a basic rule of business that I learned when I was a teenager. How is it that our garages don't have this information for 19 years? How can this be? These are businesses. You're making, I don't know how much money, but you are taking money by mistake from people because you have failed. You have all these rates. Do you know how complicated these rates are? It depends on where you live, how old you are, whether you live in downtown, whether you live outside, how old you are, whether you're a student, whether you are high school. I think teachers get free parking, and none of you have to park in the garages. The garages are dirty, horrible places, and we put up with it, and we pay our fee. But then when I discover that I've been writing a check for 19 years, and all of a sudden, for 53 months in a row, nobody bothered to tell me. I found out by complete mistake and by complete chance. I found a parking brochure that I was given in 2000 in my desk. That's how I found out. And when I called Mr. Navin, he said, "You're not going to get your money back. I don't care. I'm not going to help you. Goodbye. Get lost." He was rude. He was nasty. He did not want to help me. He resented the fact that I asked the question.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
That's it.
I have to speak
You're making
up.
it personal. It's
Okay,
not
I'm
done
sorry.
in the shade.
I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
But that was my motivation at realizing that
You're exceeding
none of
your
you
time.
understand.
Excuse
Okay,
me,
I'm
you're
exceeding
exceeding
the
your
time.
time.
Anyway, thank you for this piece of paper. It's still not being distributed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, can I say one more thing?
No, it's over. Anyone else wants to speak in opposition? In opposition? Hearing's closed. Motion to adopt by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Cirillo. Discussion. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Roll call? Yes.
Roll call.
Just before we have the roll call with the previous speaker, your predecessor was supposed to send out a notice in a municipal mailing about the senior rates, and they were also supposed to be posted in each of the garages. And I assume that was done, but I don't know that that's ever been done.
Well, we will check into it. Mr. Navin's indicating that it was done, Counselor, so, and we'll confirm that, but he's indicated that it was done.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call. Yes, Councilor Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, I can vividly remember seeing pictures of those signs posted in every single garage. I don't know what's going on here.
Right. You're
Roll
correct.
call.
Yep. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel New.
Yes.
Mayor Samara.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, loan order garage construction. We'll open the hearing. For those in favor? Those in favor? Close that portion of the hearing. For those in opposition? Those in opposition? Those in opposition? Hearing closed. Motion to adopt and refer to the clerk's office for 20 days by Councilor Elliott, seconded
Second.
by Councilor Kennedy. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Thank you. We're now at 4.5, ordinance amend chapter 272 to 287 entitled Annual Sewer Use Charge. Open hearing for those in favor. Those in favor? That portion is closed. It's now open for those in opposition. In opposition? In opposition? That portion is closed. Hearing is closed. I need a motion to adopt
Motion to adopt.
by Councilor Conway, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
Next, we have an ordinance to amend Chapter 272, Article 6, Section 272 to 286, metered service water. I need to open the hearing for those in favor. Those who want to speak in favor. That portion is closed. Those in opposition. Those in opposition. Opposition. That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt
Motion to adopt.
by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Mercia. Any discussion? Okay, Councilor Elliott?
I just think it's important if we could have the city manager just explain exactly what we're adopting here. This is, it's rate schedule, so there continues to be discounts for our seniors, and it's a block structure. I know we discussed this in the past, but I just think it's important for people at home to know that exactly what this is, and that it still maintains the senior citizen discount, and it's based on usage.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor, and I know Mr. Young is here to speak in detail, but you're correct, Mr. Young, if you want to come forward. This is, the same discounts will remain in place, and this hasn't been adjusted in several years, so.
You're correct, Counselor. The elderly discounts will remain. It will not be affected.
We still maintain the same structure, that it's based upon water usage to a certain rate, and the more you use, then
Yes.
the more it goes up. And this also includes the wastewater charge, so it's both. It's right.
Correct.
Okay.
And as the council, I'm sure, is aware, this is one of the rates that nonprofits will also pay, that are oftentimes some of the biggest users in the city, where they don't pay into the tax rate, but they do pay for water and sewer. And that is, sometimes it's complained because our nonprofits don't pay taxes, but this is a place where they do pay for what they're using. And as I said, hospitals, universities, they're very big users of both water and sewer.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point, Madam Manager, that this does, it's for the rate, it's for the users, as you mentioned, the two large users. And more importantly, if we have to adjust this similar to the parking rate, because in my opinion, this should not fall on the taxpayers. I understand that, some users are taxpayers, but by the same token, it's the large users and for both this and the garages that we should not be putting on the tax rate. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And just one last point, Mr. Mayor, even with this rate increase, obviously we have an aging infrastructure, both water and sewer, that has to be maintained and replaced, but even with this, time bond rates, Lowell is one of the lowest in the area in terms of water and sewer charges. So we feel that we're very fair and competitive, but we need to take care of our infrastructure.
Thank you.
Discussion. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon. Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Next, we have a hearing and vote to approve the fiscal year 19 budget appropriation. Open the hearing for those in favor. Want to speak in favor? Those who want to speak in favor? That portion closed. Those who want to speak in opposition? In opposition? Opposition? That portion is closed. First, I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Noon. Now, we have two options, I would say, to the council. We can either go department by department or vote the bottom line and ask questions. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to the budget, I have reviewed the fiscal year 2019 city budget. I have compared the line items and figures of this year's budget with those figures from last year's budget. My special financial concerns were many, but I'll narrow my priorities to just a few. First off, this city and this council have certain obligations under Mass General Law that we must fund, that being fixed costs, contractually mandated retirement, FICA, Social Security, insurance, debt service, etc. Then there's public safety. We need to maintain a level of safety by budgeting, as we know, the police, 250 uniformed officers and 213 firefighters. Although through retirement, the numbers for the firefighters, I believe, are at 204, and we need to fill the void for the firefighters. However, according to the budget, the money is there, but I'd like to see that it happen, that we can put in the 9 firefighters that we need. It's very important to our public safety. City equipment is being replaced and maintained, which is critical in providing services to our constituents. This is being achieved through this budget, but also through the 5-year capital plan as well, and that's very important to me. Education, the city, according to this year's budget, is committed to provide the best commitment to education for our 14,075 enrolled students in our 20 public school buildings. I wish and I hope that money comes available in time so that we could fund the librarians who do quite a lot more. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm still crossing my fingers hoping that happens. I could go on and I could cut here and there. I see no frivolous expenditures. I see no waste. I see a budget that is structured. I see all department heads were asked to make cuts, and they did just that. Therefore, I have deliberated long and hard over the finances, and if any of my colleagues have questions, I encourage them to ask them, and then after they do that, I will make a motion to accept this fiscal year 2019 budget as presented and say nice job with Connor Baldwin, Heather Varney, the budget crew, and Mayor Donahue. I think it's an outstanding budget. I like to be able to say I'm coming in here to cut $3.5 million, but I can't even see $1,000 because it's a tight budget. Costs have risen. We need public safety. We need our educational force going. I don't see anything that I want to, argue with you and bicker back and forth over thousands here or there. So that's where I stand with looking at this. I'm not going to be lying and say I went through every single page because I would be here till next year, but I did go very heartily to look for the meat, for the fat, and I couldn't find it. So thank you very much.
Councilor Kenny, then Councilor Milonazo.
I'm just asking, how are we going to proceed? Are we going to?
That's the question. Is, should we vote on the bottom line, then ask questions, or?
Who made a motion?
No one did. That's what I'm asking for.
I'll
Motion to
bottom
vote
line.
on the bottom line and then go into questions.
I'll second that.
Second. Roll call.
Wait, we want to speak on it first.
Yeah, we want to ask
Okay,
questions.
accept the motion. Motion's been made.
So is that, all right, so that's the motion? So we need to vote on the motion first, and then we would proceed that way?
You want to have discussion on the motion,
Motion was made and seconded. I'd like to discuss it.
You want
I
any
just asked
discussion
for a
on the
roll call on the
motion?
motion. So the motion is to just vote on the bottom line and ask questions about the
Correct.
budget, okay? Rather than to go through the budget department.
Department by department.
I just asked for a roll call on that.
Okay. Roll call.
Counselor Kennedy.
No.
Mr. Mayor,
Wait, sorry.
point of order. The motion was made to adopt it, and then it was seconded. I think some of us would like to have a discussion on it.
Okay. All right.
If I may,
We're voting on
my
the
clarity,
motion.
I think the
Yeah.
motion was to, if the procedure's gonna be to vote on the bottom line, that's this roll call. If that's what you wanna do, then there'll be then there'll be a vote.
What was
I'm
Councilor,
wrong.
what was Councilor Mercer's motion?
That's what we're voting on, is that motion.
The motion was to accept the proposed 2019 budget, and if any of my colleagues have any questions, to let them ask it. I don't have a problem with
We use
that.
that.
Exactly.
We've done that in the past. So
How
So you have
difficult
to
is
have a
that?
vote on the motion. Roll call, please.
roll call.
Counselor Kennedy.
No.
Counselor Leahy.
This is the vote on the bottom line.
Yes.
Yes, okay, yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counselor Cirillo.
Yes.
Counselor Conway.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Now it's open for discussion.
Well, no, now the motion passed. That's exactly what we wanted to do, Mr. Mayor. We wanted to discuss it before the motion passed, but we're doing things backwards
We were
here.
going in that direction. Thank you. Councilman Milonazo.
Thank you. Again, I understood what the clerk was trying to tell us, that we're going to vote on the process or the procedure, which is what we just did. And now at the end of the discussion, we're going to probably vote on the number, unless I'm wrong. But in any event, I just want to say
But
too
that was the chair's purpose, to ask the council which direction we want to go in, to have the vote if we're going to
Right, and that's the
do this
direction we're
by
going in. And I'm sure all my
accepting the bottom
colleagues
line
will.
and open
Right,
up for discussion.
Right. Again, I just want to say, again, by virtue of reviewing the budget, I can understand again why this administration, the previous administration, the finance team is awarded accolades every year by the Commonwealth. This is just a tremendous budget, a tremendous amount of work. It's over 600 pages. We're only looking at a 2% increase in the tax levy. We're $12 million, or actually more than that. We're about $18 million below the levy limit for this fiscal year. So again, it's prudent management. I had two questions. One having to do with the number of vacancies in the police department. As Councilor Mercier and others have said, public safety is very key to the administration, to the council. So we do have a number of vacant positions which are funded in the budget, but what's the timeline to get those funded, number one? And then number two, the long-range forecast for the other, the OPED liability. I know in fiscal year 2019 it's going up slightly, and then I believe it starts going down in 2021 and through 2036, whatever the number is. So I guess my question is, how are we monitoring that, and what, from the standpoint of the Commonwealth, the state law, do we have to have in place within a certain amount of time? So between the vacancies in the police department and the OPED liability, what's the administration's position?
Mr. Mayor, through you to the council, with regard to your first question in the vacancies in the police department, you're correct. The budget is committed to maintaining 250 sworn officers on the force, and that is critically important. There are vacancies due to retirements and whatnot. Chief Webb is here to address the plan going forward as far as filling those. Naturally, as you know, there's the issue of a class and filling that class. So, Chief, I don't know if you have further information as to how we will be addressing the vacancies.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. As far as the current vacancies in the police department, we're authorized at a strength of 250, including all patrolmen and superior officers. Right now, we have 245. We have 5 vacancies, but included in that 245 number is 16 officers who just entered the police academy. Between police academy training and field training after they get out of the academy, they won't be ready for full duty until sometime in February or March of next year. As far as the 5 vacancies that we do have to bring us up from 245 to 250, we'll be asking the manager for permission to seek some transfers from other departments in the near future.
Thank you, thank you. And so we are committed to reaching that 250 and maintaining 250. Obviously, there are fluctuations, but that is the commitment of the administration in the budget and to the council. To the OPEB question, I'm going to turn that over to the CFO, Connor Baldwin.
So the OPEB figure, other post-employment benefits, is a significant challenge for the city, but the city is not alone in facing that as a major fiscal challenge. The number as it stands on the liability for the city is $597 million. Now, it's sort of deceiving in that it's a number on paper, so it's on the city's books. A number of years ago, the city was required by one of the GASB pronouncements to incorporate that into our net position, so it really did affect not just Lowell, but all municipalities, the financial position of the city. In terms of your question as to the procedures and what the city's doing about the number. So first it gets updated every year, and then every couple of years there's a actuarial update which reevaluates the mortality tables for the retirees, who's taking insurance, and you know, the number is slightly revised at that point. So the city maintains a trust that was seeded a number of years ago. The council collapsed the old health insurance trust, the city's portion, into an OPEB trust. That money was invested in a trust fund and has been generating income each year. So that is built from about 7.8 to just over, $8.3 million. But as those two numbers compare, there's still a significant delta. So one of the things that is a topic of discussion and in finance throughout the Commonwealth is how different communities are addressing their OPEB liability. The rating agencies certainly want communities to develop a plan as to, dedicating a specific appropriation each year, or looking to putting or setting certain monies aside on an annual basis towards OPEB. Our treasurer, Rodney Conley, has come up with some ideas for how we may address that in some ways in the city, and that's looking to new kinds of revenue that may be available to the city, so as not to hurt our current operation, but to look to new sources of revenue and dedicate a portion of them towards OPEB. That may be a way for us, in addition to the interest earned on the OPEB trust, to building up that fund balance, as well as looking to available funds like free cash for potential appropriation. But those are the plan options that are before us. The requirements by state law are specific right now to the pension liability, and the city is dedicated to meeting its pension obligation by 2036. At that point, there will be additional funding that could be dedicated towards the OPEB liability, but that's sort of the OPEB situation, which is a significant fiscal challenge for the city.
All said, Council Miller. Council Conley.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I want to thank the city manager and her team for doing a great job, Connor Baldwin and Heather Varney. It's obviously, we've sat down, we've talked about it, it certainly is a lean budget. I'm glad that, just to make a few quick points here, I'm glad the fact that we are going to make sure that we take care of those 5 vacancies in the police department and bring us back up to the 250. Because I think that, there are many components that make a successful municipality, but certainly we take a look at public safety, police and the fire, and also education. These are two areas that we have to make sure that we fund them as best we possibly can. And I know that that's spending the taxpayers' money as wisely as possible, because without a strong public safety component and an excellent educational component, economic development doesn't happen. Because if you have individuals wanting to move into the city, they want to find out about the school system. They want to find out about the various schools and what they have to offer and how effective they are. And also the fact that they want to make sure that we have a very safe city too. So these are two areas that that we certainly have to concentrate on. And I realize, and some of my colleagues have already mentioned it tonight, that it is a lean budget. And, you know, perhaps when we take a look at, you know, new revenues, what those revenues might be, you know, if we look at, for example, and we talked about it our last meeting about marijuana and how that is all going to take place. Those are potentially revenues from sales and also from fines. So I'm wondering whether we could take a portion of those monies and put it into the OPEB fund. It certainly could help us out because, again, I'm not sure where we get other monies, and we want to try to, which you did, you and your team kept the rate down as much as we possibly can. But we also have to provide those services, therefore we have to get creative. This might be an area that we could take a look at, even though there are no monies on the table right now, but, and I'm not sure what the projections are, and going forward, how we would do that, whether there's again, in a subcommittee or in a motion to look at what percentage. This is something that you and your team might want to take a look at.
Thank you.
Madam Manager.
Thank you, through you to the council. As you mentioned, there's expected new revenue from marijuana. There are tax that the council voted on, a 3% tax. There's also a 3% impact fee. Those monies would be needed to be used for specific purposes under the state law, but the tax is something that may be accessible and something that we'll come back to the council to talk about. Right now, we don't have an exact figure or even estimate. I don't think anybody really knows what the sales will be or what the tax revenue will be, but as we move into this next fiscal year, we may begin to discover that. But it's certainly an avenue to look at in terms of new revenue, and perhaps dedicating, you know, and this is something that has been talked about. I did want to take one moment as well, Mr. Mayor, just to thank the finance team for this budget. The CFO, Connor Baldwin, has been mentioned, the assistant CFO, Heather Varney, as well as Alex McGee, as well as Karen Moynihan, and as well as the former assistant manager, Mike McGovern. Everybody has worked very hard on this, and I want to commend them for their excellence in making this happen almost since the day I arrived back in April. So, but we will continue to look at that, monitor the expected revenues, and then come to the council and talk about what's the council's wish as far as those. Obviously, some will be general fund revenues, and then others need to be utilized for specific purposes.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Appreciate that.
Any further discussion? Council Leahy, then Council Elliott.
I just want to say thank you. I think it's a great budget again, and, you know, lean times, but thank you to the manager and Connor Baldwin and Heather. The way the CFO speaks about the budget and just rolls off your tongue. I know you're very knowledgeable about this, so we trust in you. And as Mr. Conway said, you know, who knows what's going to happen with the new growth, and that could be a big windfall for us. So always good things about this budget from the past administration. Now your name's on it, and so thank you very much.
Council Elliott.
I concur with my colleagues. I think it's a comprehensive budget, and anything you need to know about the city is right here. I like the measures, the performance measures, the outputs. But again, similar to the capital budget, I feel it's a well-balanced budget. We have some very challenging fixed costs, if you will. We talked about PERAC. We talked about, you know, or in particular, and I want people to know there's some things we just, this is what we get from the state. Our pension liability, PERIC, this is the assessment, this is what we have to meet. Charter schools, I know it's beating the drum again, but $1.9 million increase over last year. We're at $21 million this year that we are absorbing. We all agree and invest in public education, but this is something the legislature clearly needs to address, particularly for the city of Lowell. But moving forward, we're maintaining our police levels, we're maintaining the fire, safety, and I think what's important is we're using unreserved fund balance, so when we close the books this year, any excess we're going to put back into the stabilization and to keep the taxes as low as we possibly can. I think that's important, using $2 million to offset that, and I think it's important for people to know it's a $376 million budget with all the enterprise funds. And I have gone through it in great depth, and there are two new positions, or there's two new positions, or three, excuse me, where we're taking a police officer out of computer network and putting them on the streets. We are hiring a substance abuse coordinator to address the opioid epidemic. And Madam Manager, I thought there was a third, but just two. Oh.
Those are the two
Just
positions.
two. So I think that's an important measure, that we're not adding positions. We're maintaining it's a service-funded budget. And you implemented a hiring freeze when you got here to keep an eye on this fiscal year expenditures, scrutinizing, procurement and other purchases. And I think that's all part of the sound fiscal strategy. We're doing things like TIF that will bring in $15 million in the next 10 years and keeping and expanding almost 2,400 jobs. I think this is all part of the economic development scheme, and that's why we do vote and support TIF. So I think the most important aspect why we do end on a positive fiscal note every year with free cash or excess unreserved fund balance is the conservative estimates that are in this budget and that are in previous budgets and how we forecast forward. And the devil is in the details with expenditures, but it's also revenue. And if you overextend, then we end up with a shortfall. So I know all these things are contained in the budget, but at the end of the day, we're fiscally sound. When you see Standard & Poor's report saying there's strong budgetary controls, there's strong fiscal management, and the city has the ability to be flexible should some unexpected issues arise, because we have that cushion. Our stabilization is fine, which is why we have an A1 rating, the second highest rating, and that shows great fiscal strength. So I'm going to support this. Would love to be able to reduce it somehow, but it's a bare bones, and that's, I think it addresses some of the things, all the things that we have to do, particularly substance abuse, public safety, and we already supported it, so we already took the vote. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just quickly, there is one, I want to correct it. There's an energy coordinator that's authorized. It has not been filled, and we're continuing to study it. So I just want to be accurate.
There was
as far
three.
as,
Thank you.
Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes, I also want to thank you for all of your hard work on the budget. And I did notice that for waste collection, disposal, and recycling, that number went up by 300,000. But we are doing away with single-use plastic bags in the year is starting January of 2019. So I think that we will actually save money if this number includes fines. So I just wanted to say that there is a place where we can possibly save money in this budget. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought there was some confusion, and apparently there's still some confusion as to what the previous vote was, but the vote that we just took was just on how to proceed and whether or not we should proceed with a vote on the bottom line, or whether or not we should go through each department by department.
We voted on
I
the
understand. I've got the floor, I think, right,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
So we have not yet voted on the budget. I happen to think that it's a worthwhile exercise, even if you don't cut any money out of the budget, to go through it department by department. I think it refreshes everybody on the city council's memory of what's in the budget and how the money is spent by every department and so forth. However, I did not speak against the motion because I understand that for the past year or maybe even 2 years, this is the way we've proceeded. So I don't really have any objection to it. It's just that I think that going through it department by department is a worthwhile exercise, no matter what the outcome. I have to say this, I do think that this is your first budget, Madam Manager. I think it's a very good budget. I also would like to commend the team on the work that they've done. I know that this is something that they've been working on for months. I think that nobody likes to see any increase in the tax rate or in taxes. However, people have to understand that expenses in their household go up moderately every single year, and so you have to expect that if we're going to maintain the level of services that we provide to the citizens in Lowell, that there is going to be an increase every year. But I think as long as that increase is moderate, that's acceptable. So with that, I'll be happy to support the budget. I don't really have any questions on the budget. There was a concern a couple of years ago about the overtime account for the fire department, but I think that is doesn't seem to be out of line. It seems to be creeping up a little bit, but I'm sure that's something that you'll watch. And aside from that, I'd just like to commend everybody on a job well done.
Any other questions? Councilor Newman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to join my fellow city councilor in congratulate Madam Manager and her team. This is a good budget that really adequately address both education and public safety, which is very crucial to the success of the future of the city. And I'm also pleased to hear that you were willing to fill the vacancy by receiving transfer from other departments as well, or from other city, which is a good thing to quickly fill the vacancies so that we have a full police force. So with that said, I want to thank you for that.
Madam Manager, a question. You did a great job in the budget, your whole team, but the expenses seem to be rising in the recyclable area, trash waste and that type of thing. Can you address some of that issue?
That's correct. The amount included in the budget for the solid waste and recycling line item includes a half a year of a projected increase for a new contract. The current contract for trash collection expires at the end of the calendar year. So we anticipate entering into a new contract. We've begun analysis. The DPW commissioner, his deputy, the finance team, and the city manager and the law department have been analyzing a number of potential increases, potential new components of the contract and what that means financially for the city. And we do anticipate a significant increase in cost related specifically to the recycling component of the contract. The previous or the existing recycling contract was quite beneficial to the city. However, it was entered into prior to a number of the surrounding communities, so Lowell kind of got the benefit of getting in first. One of the things that changed significantly is the market for recyclable materials. There's been a lot of talk about this in the news as of recently about the market in China for these materials that are sold by, say, for instance, a waste management to China. The market for them has all but dried up, so they're unable to sell them, and then they pass that cost along backwards to the customer, in this case being the city of Lowell. So we do anticipate the other sort of component of that is the type of recycling or the items found in recycling. So the city needs to take a look at, awareness as to what things are put into the bin, and making sure that they're the right materials so that we can get on the right track and make sure we're on the right financial path.
Do you think this is doable, Madam Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very serious issue. It is significant cost that we're expecting from whatever provider that we contract with. But the truth is this, people are not recycling appropriately. Many people are just putting whatever they want, regardless of the color of the barrel. That costs all of us a lot of money. The recycle fee does not pay for the actual cost, and the general fund is picking that up. We had people in explaining to us that the percentage of contamination in the recycle portion in the city of Lowell is very high, and that means when they take the barrels or what they have taken from the recycle barrels back to their facility, they have to pay to separate out the contaminated materials. That cost gets passed on to us. Likewise, they have explained to us that in the red barrel, which is supposed to be trash, people are putting things in there that could be recycled. So it's twofold. We need to educate people that this is costing money, that it isn't just a question you get away with it when people take your barrel away. It will be a significant hit to the budget, and that's number one. Number two, we also will have to do a better job of enforcing. So sometimes that's the only way people will change their habits in terms of where they're not recycling. And Gunther Wellenstein has gotten a grant for education, and that's what he's going to be doing with going out into neighborhoods and working with our contractor so that we know where are the areas that are most problematic, try and educate residents there again as to what can go in the barrel. So it's printed right on the barrel itself, what can be recycled. And then ultimately, if there isn't, or if there's a disregard for that, we may have to just start citing, and even some communities just take that individual off the program because it is costing the city way too much money. So it can be remedied, Mr. Mayor, in a significant way if people try and comply. What Connor has referred to is the problem of where do the companies bring the recyclables, and China has kind of shut down, so they're looking for others. But we have a real problem right here in the city where people are just not following the rules in terms of recycling, and that translates to dollars.
Okay. Councilor Elliott.
No, I agree. I was actually going to file a motion knowing the significance, and some towns have actually refused to stop recycling because the market or China has refused to accept a certain grade of recyclable materials. So I think the timing of this is important, and what can we do about it? As you mentioned, just change what is going in to cut back on the fines. But I think it's going to change the entire recycling world, if you will, including disposal and sorting. I think it's the sorting that is the big cost that they're, the major recycling plant in Charlestown, they stopped refusing recyclable materials. So it's like the tsunami on the rise, that this is just all of a sudden going to affect us. So good to know that there's discussions being held, and what can we do? I think it's a good information, and thank you.
I think it's important information. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that aside from the environmental benefits, one of the good things about recycling is that it's a lot cheaper. So that the materials that we put in the recycling bin, rather than in the trash bin, it's a lot cheaper than it is. It's a lot cheaper to recycle than it is to put it in the green bin than it is to put it in the red bin. And so that's the good thing. And I think that Worcester is probably the city in the Commonwealth that does it the best. But if we've gotten to the point where we're putting the improper materials into the recycling bin, then that defeats the whole purpose. And instead of it being cheaper, we're making it be more expensive. So it will be a shame if we have to get to the place where we need trash police to go around and look in all of the bins. But I can see maybe it's going to that. So we've got the trash contract and the recycling contract all coming up this year at the end of, okay. So I think everybody will be interested to see how that goes, but maybe we need to spend more money on budget, or just make people understand that what they're doing is instead of saving the city money, they're costing the city more money and negating any savings that we would have from doing the recycling. Thank you.
Councilor Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're fortunate that we have the superintendent of schools here tonight, and I wonder if I could ask him a question. Mr. Superintendent? We're talking about the recycling, and I'm just wondering, do we teach recycling to the kids in school? Because, I mean, the reason why I'm asking this is, you know, they would be the best ambassadors for us, going back to their home and kind of haunting their mother and father of this needs to be recycled and this doesn't.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as they do in various schools, the city also has, through Mr. Gunter, programs that they run with the schools in having the kids involved in the recycling programs itself.
Is this done on a regular basis?
I don't know how regular, obviously I don't have the schedules with me, but I can get the council that information.
Okay, all right, thank you.
They do it every year, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
Further discussion? I need a motion to accept the bottom line of $361,582,581.
So moved.
By Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Kennedy. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy. Councilor
Oh,
Leahy.
excuse me. Counsel Leahy.
What's the question again? No, yes.
Yes. Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Wait,
Elliott.
you forgot me now.
Cirillo.
Yes.
It's 9 years.
It's
Well, now you forgot
yes.
me.
9 years the hard way.
Yeah. Madam Manager.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the council for their support on this first budget. As I credited before, the credit goes to the finance team. I did omit one member who worked very hard as well, and that's the treasurer, Rodney Conley. I was going to say Conway because I'm looking over there. Rodney Conley, who also helped tremendously in this effort.
Thank you. Go ahead, yes.
I just quickly, just want to say thank you to the manager and thank you to all the department heads that are all waiting here that didn't have to answer any questions to us, but thank you for everybody being here.
And
Madam Manager.
one other thanks to the superintendent and to Mr. Frisch, who came at our request in case the council had any questions about the school budget. Thank you very much for sitting through your budget as well as our budget. So.
Thank you. And if anybody wondered why I seem to be a little removed during the meetings, I was getting calls from my wife, and she knows I'm in a meeting, and I was trying to answer, text back, and what have you. Are you okay? This type of thing. Seems that my youngest granddaughter has been, we'll say, messing with my life right now, so I apologize for that. Okay, well, the next we have a vote to approve. Ordinance establishing revolving funds pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. I'd like to open the hearing for those in favor. Those in favor? That portion is closed. Open the hearing for those in opposition. In opposition. Opposition. That portion is closed. I need a motion to adopt.
Move to approve.
Approved by Councilor Conway and Councilor Elliott, second. Any discussion? Discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
It's 9 yeas.
We did it. Actually got through it. Painful, but we got it. All right, I believe we're council motions? Council motions by Council Cirillo, request city manager instruct DPD to provide a report and proposal regarding a plan authored by former Lowell High School headmaster Peter Stamus entitled Lowell, a Flower and City.
Second.
Second by Council Kennedy.
Yes. Everyone should have this wonderful flyer, Lowell, the Flowering City, on their desk.
Yes.
So there's a little story, a backstory to this. When I first moved to Lowell, I was driving down the Lowell connector, and I would always see Lowell, the Flowering City, the sign that said Lowell, the Flowering City. So I thought that Lowell was in fact the Flowering City until, I had lived here a little bit longer and learned it was the Mill City. So I always wondered, what was it about Lowell, the Flowering City? So I looked into it, and I found out that there was a plan 21 years ago called Lowell, the Flowering City. So I looked into it, and I saw that Paul Marion had been a part of it. And I messaged Paul saying that I was going to be putting a motion on, and he sent back this wonderful email, and I'm going to read it because it states very wonderfully what this is about. The idea was to put forward a framework for physical community development that shifted attention to natural resources and organic assets, social, cultural, environmental, of the changing city. By 1996, even by then, an enormous amount of planning, money, and project implementation had been invested in Lowell's comeback. People in the community, some of them anyway, recognized that a fresh vision that would be as compelling as the urban cultural park of the 70s was needed in order to keep everyone moving forward. The bricks and mortar revitalization piece was well on the way by the mid-90s. Never mind all that's been accomplished since then. The unfinished business resided in the green and blue components of the city. Interestingly, the impetus for an urban cultural park was rooted in environmental education or place-based experimental lifelong learning as an alternative to the conventional educational model of in-school instruction. So that the Flowering City concept was really getting back to root ideas for community renaissance. Looking around, it was clear to folks that the waterways, the blueways, open space and state forest, greenways, and neighborhood landscaping gardening were full of potential. Fast forward to 2018, and it's easy to see that Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust programs, Mill City Grows, Gardening Ethic, Lowell Waterways Vitality Project, Shed Park and Tyler Park renewals, efforts to lessen effects of climate change, and other initiatives are totally in sync with the larger vision expressed in the Flowering City. That said, there remain ambitious goals in the original plan that are worth revisiting and customizing to fit the city so many years later. Wouldn't it be uplifting to shine a spotlight on this innovative community improvement plan and prepare to do an audit on all that's been done to realize the vision, a vision that long ago imagined Lowell as a community with a holistic image of itself as a place where people and buildings on the land strive to make the city's quality of life as healthy, productive, inspiriting, and sustainable as possible. So I couldn't have said it better myself, but we're talking Paul Marion, he's just phenomenal. So that's why I'm bringing this back to the table. This is a 25-year plan, and we're in year 21. And I know that we've moved forward with Mill City Grows and other greening projects, but I would love to see how we can improve that by utilizing this plan that was put in place 21 years ago. And I also wanted to say that there's a great saying on the last page. We can create Lowell, the Flowering City, over the next 25 years if we commit ourselves now, individually and collectively, to a vision of a sustainable future. And we did have, and I'm looking at the partners, and of course, Peter Stamis, Paul Marion, Patrick Mogan, Marie Sweeney, and then we have the Lowell Heritage Partnership was one of the partners, along with Lowell, the City of Lowell City Manager's Office, Department of Parks and Recreation, the Lowell City Council Environmental Subcommittee. So I look at this and I think, wow, this is absolutely fantastic. It's something that's from the past that can come back and be part of our future. So thank you.
Any further discussion? But you are correct. There are a lot of very good people that are still around that are very interested in this type of presentation. So
Yes,
I think
there's
if you gather them together, you might find some good results.
this list is absolutely fantastic of all the people who worked so very hard on this initiative.
Okay. All set. Okay, next by Councilor Cirillo, require city manager instruct proper department to provide trash barrels at various locations along Jackson Street, especially the segment between the Marston and Canal Streets.
Second.
Second by Councilor Mercia.
Can I just say one more thing about the Flowering City? I meant to thank Nancy Pitkin for her wonderful keeping of the files of the Flowering City, because without her, I looked everywhere for this, and thanks to Nancy Pitkin, we have it. But okay, getting back to my second motion, yes, this came out of one of the JAMBRA meetings, and it would be well, it's self-explanatory, this motion, so thank you.
Okay, Councilor Elliott.
I just wanted to support this motion. I think it makes sense. There were representatives from the Lowell Community Health Center. Malika Tang was here, and I just wanted to, not speak on her behalf, but to express the support that there's only 2 barrels in that entire stretch, and they would be grateful if they could get more barrels just to keep the place clean.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councilor Elliott. In the I was at the event, the open house for Lowell Community Charter School event last week, and Councilor Elliott's correct. It's only 2 barrels along Jackson Street, and we need to maybe add a couple more so that people don't throw trashes on the street. So it's good, great motion.
Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. I think this is a good motion, and I think in addition to the barrels, some of the street materials are either bricks or there are seams, and in the seams, embedded in the seams is dirt. It almost needs to be like vacuumed or something like that. And you see that in that whole general area, not just along that street, but along the next street over and in part of Central Street as well.
All set. Any further discussion? Councilor Leahy.
I'll just add one other thing. It might be a good idea, too. Every few years, we ask Mr. Donaldson if he could take a look and see if any barrels that could be rearranged. Maybe some areas get more use than others, and we can just rearrange the usage around the city. Thank you.
All set. Okay, next, motion by Councilor Elliott requires City Council to discuss establishing a standing subcommittee regarding cannabis control. Councilor Elliott.
Second.
Oh, second, sorry.
I don't need to elaborate too much. I think the motion speaks for itself, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of subcommittees is to allow a thorough deliberation, and knowing how many issues I feel that we'll have to sort through as not only the Cannabis Commission at the state level rolls out regulations, but how those regulations affect us here, whether it's zoning or privacy rights or enforcement. I think the list is going to be long and sorted. So I just thought, we don't like to add yet another subcommittee, but knowing how many issues perhaps the city that we have been sort of speaking about in the future, it just makes some sense to be able to have full discussion and on these many issues.
Thank you. I mean, when you put this motion through, I've been thinking about this a lot, because there are communities that do establish this and there are communities that don't. The issues we have, how many subcommittees do we have? We have the subcommittee on substance abuse that Councilor Mercia is doing a great job with, and That's a different product. And we have the Council of Safety that deals with some of the issues. My feeling, though, my concern is that this is such a big issue. Should this be something that the entire city council, be the subcommittee in a sense? So that's just a direction that I'm concerned about. I understand where you're coming from, because we do have to get a lot of information as we, bring this out. A lot of people are still asking questions. The state's still making determinations. And to me, I really feel that we've got it covered. But any other discussion from anybody else? So, Councilor Kennedy.
Mr. Mayor, so what your suggestion instead is that if issues arise, that you would call a committee of the whole, and then the whole council would
it's just where we are.
Would take it up, yeah. That sounds good to me. I mean, we already have quite a few subcommittees, and also this is maybe an issue that the public safety subcommittee, or maybe there's a couple of other subcommittees that that could handle this issue, but also maybe having the whole council meet as a committee of the whole when issues arise concerning this subject matter come up is not a bad way to go.
Yeah. Good. Any further discussion?
Look, if people don't want to support a commission, I just think as I read through this, as I read and participate in meetings, we're going to just be parceling out these issues that could be, I think, discussed under one particular subcommittee.
Okay.
Most, if not, I'd be shocked if every other community doesn't have something like this. But if it's the will of the council that they just want to send one issue to public safety, or one issue to zoning, or one issue to substance abuse, that's fine. I think it makes more sense to put all of these issues and send it onto it's the biggest issue in the state that we're facing, and to not set up a subcommittee. Not to set up a subcommittee, I don't think we're doing due diligence, but it doesn't matter. I put it forward, and we'll abide by the will of the body.
So it's a good point, but the thing is, I'm looking at the city council as a whole. Councilor Cirillo, then Councilor Conway.
Yes, I feel that we do have many subcommittees that deal with the certain aspects of each, and it just seems like we would be overlapping. That's my comment.
Councilor Conway?
Yeah, just very briefly, I think it's, when I take a look at this situation, it's extremely complicated. And to take and cut it up into different subcommittees, in my humble opinion, really doesn't make much sense. I think we should be able to have one committee and zero in specifically on that area, like we have with public safety, or any of the other motions we have. I mean, for example, you could say the finance subcommittee. Well, why doesn't everybody talk about the finance subcommittee?
No, I understand that, but I'm looking at this. This is new to this city council. It's new to the city. It's new to the state. It's something that it's my own personal feeling that it should be the council of a whole. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, maybe you should have a roll call then.
Yeah, let's do that. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Could you read?
Councilor Kennedy.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you read the motion on what we're voting on? In other words, if no vote means that we would it would be the committee of the whole that would handle this issue.
You're just voting the vote. The motion is request city council to discuss establishing a standing subcommittee regarding cannabis. A no vote would say there would be no subcommittee.
Yeah.
Councilor Kennedy.
Sorry, Councilor Elliott? Okay.
We should be on the same page on this. We shouldn't be discussing the merits of a committee or not. I just put it forward. I thought it made a lot of common sense. So if there's not a will to do it, I'm fine with it. We'll just deal one issue at a time, just from an organizational perspective. That's all.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Before the clerk called the roll, if need be, I just feel that there's no harm on it. I mean, it's not to take away from any other subcommittee, public safety, substance abuse subcommittee, and or zoning. And zoning deal with this already, Mr. Mayor. This is a new topic. Really, it's July 1st. They're going to start it. We need to have something in place. I mean, I know it's your call, But I do feel, again, I do agree with Councilors Conway that there's no harm in it. I mean, maybe we combine those and just having one and trying to address it, maybe at an ad hoc basis. There's no need to be a permanent committee, a standing committee, and so.
Well, we all have a different way of looking at it.
I understand.
I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm just giving you my view as to how many subcommittees we have and how important this matter is to the council as a whole. That's it.
I understand, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Roll call.
Counsel Kennedy.
No.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercier.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
No.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
No.
Counsel Cirillo.
No.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Okay. Motion passes. Next is Councilor Elliott requests the city manager have the DPD apply for municipal vulnerability preparedness grant from the state. Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. I have to correct my own motion, Madam Manager. I believe you have to apply to the program.
Sorry, I needed a second. It just, by Councilor Noon. Thank you. I apologize.
So the motion speaks, I believe it's not, but you can't apply for the grant until you accept it into the program. And grants are being awarded across the Commonwealth and is essentially for, vulnerability and preparedness when it comes to climate change and things of that nature. And it's a great program, just passed with the environmental bond bill. And it allows communities to identify how we can prepare. Clearly coastal communities are subject a little bit more to some of these effects, but I think it's important for us to look into it and see, because there will be some effects to the city. So that's the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next by Councilor Elliott, require mayor invite Captain Crowley from Lowell Police Department to council meeting to acknowledge his dedication to the city.
Second.
Motion speaks for itself.
Thank you. Madam Manager, is Captain Crowley available for this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will certainly check as far as its availability. I think his actual last day is June 23rd, but we'll certainly check to see if he's available on the 26th or another date, depending on his schedule.
And if he's not, then perhaps we can send a letter
Yes,
acknowledging
absolutely.
and thanking him for his
But
service.
you're correct. He's deserving to be called forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is. I think his commitment to the city and the leadership and the initiatives that he put forward.
We'll work around his schedule.
Yeah, of course.
I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to make sure we can get him. Okay, thank you. Councilor Leahy requests City Council send letter of appreciation to Captain Tim Crowley in recognition of his service in the city of Lowell. Need a second by Councilor Mercia.
Same thing, just want to acknowledge what he's done over the years, and as former headmaster of the high school,
Did a
we all
great
worked
job.
with him years ago and did a great job there and continued throughout his career, so if we just send him a nice letter too, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy requests superintendent of schools to provide the city council with a report explaining why Lowell School District is subject to an increase in the charter schools cap relative to Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 89, Paragraph 2 and 3. Need a second by
Seconded.
Councilor Cirillo. Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you bear with me a little bit, this year, in the FY19 budget, the amount of money that we have to pay for charter schools is about $22 million. If you read the legislation regarding the charter schools, which is Chapter 71, Section 89, and the paragraphs that I'm concerned with are paragraphs 2 and 3, what it does is to cap the amount of money that a city would or a community would have to pay for a charter school at 9%. That's what it says in Chapter 2. Unless you are in the bottom 10% of all of the schools, the 289 school districts in the Commonwealth, in which case the cap is 18%. The city of Lowell has not been in the bottom 10% since fiscal year 2016, or roughly since just about when Superintendent Kapawi came to the Lowell school system. Paragraph 3 of the legislation reads that if a community comes, or a school district comes out of the bottom 10%, then they would pay no higher than 9% unless they were paying more than 9% in the previous year. 2016 would be the previous year for the city of Lowell. In 2016, we were paying 9.05%. So just a little bit above the 9%. In FY 2019, we will be paying, I believe it's 10.9%. The difference in that is almost $410,000. Just a month ago, we were scrambling around looking for $500,000 for the school department. I believe that this is at least worth exploring with DESE and with the Commonwealth. I think that we might be overpaying, and if we are, that would be $410,000 coming our way. And I certainly think it's worth looking into. And so the motion just asks for the superintendent of schools and to provide the city council with a report on why it is that we're paying so much more than what we should be paying under the legislation. And that's basically the motion. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay. Next, Councilor Kennedy, request superintendent of schools and school committee consider establishing a mini course to be part of the curriculum for Lowell High School seniors and adult education students that would cover the voting process in Lowell and the functions of the municipal government.
Seconded.
Yes, second by Councilor Cirillo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I spoke on this motion earlier in the evening, and so I'll leave it at that. I just think it's a good idea to do, and hopefully the school department will think so as well. Thank you.
Announcements?
Yes.
Councilor Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Saturday, this Saturday, June 16th, the Lawrence Kavanaugh basketball court dedication, that's a site of the Butler School on Gorham Street. That'll be at 11 o'clock. And then on the following Wednesday, June 20th, at Spinners Stadium, LaLasha Park, at 5:45 in the field will be a dedication for Joanne and Drew Weber Way. So those are the two very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
Well, there's just
Councilor
something,
Elliott.
Mr. Mayor, there's something on our desk dining for a cause, the Merrimack Valley Food Bank, Wednesday the 20th from 4 to 9. Stop into the 99 restaurants. And there's a coupon here, 15% off, sorry.
Okay, thank you. And this is a previous announcement, just that we had the Fireman's Memorial on Sunday, but prior to that, Lowell General Hospital hosted its 19th annual team walk for cancer care. And there were over 5,000 people who participated in the process, and so far they've raised $825,000. And the donations are still coming in, and that's to help Lowell General's Cancer Care Center. Also, working with the city offices and the Cambodia Mutual Association, we brought in a program called Project Citizenship, for free citizenship workshops, and it was held at the senior center, and they made 43 non-citizens eligible for citizenship papers. So I want to commend this Project Citizenship and the CMA for doing some very good work. A lot of volunteers from the city of Lowell that came in, and it was very interesting. It's basically one-stop shopping to get your citizenship papers, because it's going into one office after another where they went from table to table, and there was somebody to handle any situation, and it was free to the people who came in, and also they were given fee waivers, because the process to become a citizen is over $700, and many of them were eligible for a fee waiver. So again, commend the CMA and Project Citizenship for this. Any other? Okay, motion adjourned.
So moved.
Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Mercia. Thank you.